Hi, I'm Kaye Andersen. I'm instructional coach with Garrison Schools here in North Dakota. I'm instructional coach for K through 12, or I like to say I'm repurposed. I retired a couple years ago, but have repurposed to do instructional coaching. Most of our exact path work has been with our 7th and 8th graders. We have them both face-to-face and distance learners. We haven't done much of a hybrid model, so it's either the kids that are 100% distance, or we've been lucky to have them face-to-face almost the whole year. We really needed something to address our 7th and 8th grade students. We have an intervention and enrichment period, but that class is not facilitated by any ELA or math teachers. It's actually facilitated by those teachers that we needed to get 1 hour or 1 period in order to fulfill their contract. So it might be a music teacher, we have an agricultural teacher, a PE teacher, and Exact Path and Edmentum really helps us to address those students that are all at different levels. So those kids that haven't lost anything with being out of school last year and we're already ahead, it helps us push and provide rigor for those, as well as those kids that are behind. We do have a lot of kids that are struggling in reading, and we needed a way in order to meet them at their level. So it allows us to get both ends. We pulled in their MAP scores so that we did not have to do the diagnostic test, which was great. So then we were already ready to start without having to give them another lengthy assessment. And the goal is just really to keep them moving forward from where they're from, similar again to what Angela said, so that we can see that growth on their NWEA test score next time. And if anyone has ever taught 7th and 8th grade, you know they're quite difficult to get motivated or interested in learning. And so that's really why we thought about that would be the group we worked or considered a challenge for. And we're doing it basically an individual challenge. We used Edmentum's recommendations for how many minutes the student should be engaging in both the reading and the language arts curriculum. And our first parameters were set on the number of minutes that they were in the program. And our teachers wanted to make sure that they set it low enough to start with so that the kids would have success right away. And it was exciting to see that not only did they do that, but they kept raising the minutes every quarter because the kids were reaching it. We have it set up as a weekly challenge, Monday through Sunday. And should they make that challenge, it's an individual reward or incentive that all of them receive. We did set it a little bit lower for a few of our IEP students that we knew would struggle a little bit more, but it's very exciting because they have been reaching their challenge for the most part every week. And so every week they're motivated to start over again on Monday if they didn't make the week before. We started doing something similar like Angela did with polling the students and the teachers to find out what they would consider to be incentive or reward that they would work towards. We kind of guided the 7th and 8th graders to make it a doable reward, something that they would actually receive, because some of their ideas were really out there. So it ranged from being able to bring your own pop and snack on a Friday, or having a hat day. Some of the ones that they liked best was the idea of having a nearby bakery or the Dairy Queen provide treats. And then every week, like I said, the contest went Monday through Sunday. We wouldn't tell them what the contest prize was going to be for the next week, because then they'd say, oh, well, that might not be something I want. So it was very random. We wrote them on popsicle sticks, and the principal would make a big deal about it, going into the classrooms and pulling out a popsicle stick to see what it says the reward was going to be for a week. We printed the certificates from the Edmentum Exact Path software, and he would award those certificates to the students and let them know they were going to be receiving the incentive later in the week. And then one of their big things is being able to post a selfie with the principal on Facebook so that everybody knows they made their reading challenge each week. So it worked really well for the 7th and 8th grade because they want to fit in, they want to be like everybody else. So for everybody in a group selfie really worked for them. Well, both high and low, similar to Angela and Lauren, our low kids that struggle with reading, by the time they get to 7th and 8th grade, often they're quite a bit behind. So this really offered them instruction at their level where they could complete the number of minutes, complete the number of activities equal with their peers, where they know when they're reading in the classroom, that's not necessarily true. And we definitely saw that on our NWEA scores, where you can sort out the quadrant sort and look at how your low achievers did compared to your high achievers. And did they show low growth or high growth? Our very lowest achievers showed the most growth overall, which isn't always true. But then on the other end also, those kids at the high level that we don't always able to do in the class, differentiating all the way to the low and the high is very difficult. And sometimes those kids do not get the attention or the rigor that they need. Our high achievers, they really dug in a little bit harder too, because they had to work. Sometimes they don't have to work at what we're doing in the classroom very hard. They're able to just do it and get it done and check it off the list, where when they're working on these levels at their achievement level, they were having to work harder, and it was nice to see them have a little more pride and effort in what they were doing. Well, one of the things that we've really realized, I mentioned that it's not regular ELA reading or math teachers that are facilitating our intervention and enrichment periods. And we did go through the dashboard. We helped them set it up, told them what to look for. But I don't think that we met with them as often as we could have to start with. The 1 or 2 teachers that really latched onto it and were more involved with their dashboards, it was obvious that those kids knew someone was checking on them, knew someone was resetting it, and they were doing better. So now as we've gotten further into it, we do have set up. In fact, next week I have another check-in set up with all 8 of the teachers that are managing it, that the best results are with the teachers that do the best, if that makes sense. Even though it is kind of a self-run program and it sets things up itself, it's really important that the teachers are involved. And I also think our teachers learn to have, they expect a little bit more from the students right now. At first they set those goals maybe lower than they should have because they wanted them to have success. Second quarter, we raised those minutes, the expected minutes, and the students rose to the challenge. So at the beginning of the second semester, we did it again, but we also knew that we probably had to increase the incentives. So one of the teachers had a great idea. He suggested that we put in a double incentive popsicle stick. So that's only 1 out of like 12 popsicle sticks in there. But if that one gets pulled, then they get to pull 2 more popsicle sticks. And that week they get double incentives. So we've really learned that the randomness, you can have a big prize in there. Doesn't have to happen very often, but just the fact that it's random really gets their interest and their effort going. So we need to come up with a wider variety of bigger things and maybe put 20 popsicles in there and maybe only 2 of them be something that's really big. But that really gets the kids going.
So I want to jump into your questions. We do have a couple of questions that have popped up. So we have some time. We'll stay on the line to get to your questions. So please go ahead and add those into the Q&A. The first question that I want to address is from Jennifer. She said, we're just getting started with Exact Path in our district. What is one thing you wish you knew when you started that you figured out along the way?
As we're talking about what we wish we knew, it really is important to ask the students the questions, because when we were trying to learn the program, show them the program, the questions we got back from them was, their most important question was, how do I know how many minutes I have each week? Where do I find that? So we need to ask them what they want to know and what they need to know.
I love that. Good point. Awesome. So another question that we got in from Michelle is, how did you get all of your teachers on board to allow time in their class for Exact Path and work on the challenges? She loves the ice cream theme, but she needs to get all of her teachers on board. So do you have any examples around buy-in?
As I was instructional coach for 7 years, I finally came to the motto of, It doesn't matter how many times we tell them anything or how many times we try to train them. Until they have the question, they don't hear the answer. So the biggest thing I found was I needed to show them the data. I needed to show them just how many of our kids weren't reading at grade level. I needed to show them how our high flyer kids were getting to a certain level in 5th and 6th grade, and then they were flatlining when they came to us at the middle school and high school. And I really needed to push them on what are we going to do about it, so that they had the question, then they were more receptive of a suggestion for the answer.
Great. So our next question that we have is from Kelly. She is in a completely online virtual academy. So her students are working from home independently. Do any of you have advice to help motivate those students in the distance learning setting?
For our 7th and 8th graders in the distance learning setting especially, we talked about their craving that social interaction. And I don't know, time-wise, it's great to be able to send them an email or to talk to them in chat and give them feedback. But what one of the teachers found best to do is just to call them on Teams or to call them on Zoom and to pull up the screen and say, look at what you've been doing, and have that kid's screen in front of them. And so I'm so impressed. And also at the same time say, well, look at, this is the one you're having trouble with. Let's talk about that for a minute. But just really taking 2 minutes to reach out and do that personal connection, because without it, that feedback just doesn't have the same meaning.
Awesome. Well, I think we can go on to our next question here. It was, is there anything else you'd like to share with educators about your Exact Path contest? Is there any other feedback that maybe we didn't get to in today's presentation?
I think the one thing that we just did this second time when we had our winter map benchmark was to sit down with the kids after they completed it, talked about which of the 3 areas they made growth in, and made them make a goal for how they could improve before the final assessment, benchmark assessment this spring. And what a lot of the kids said, and I wish it were more of them, but a lot of them said that they could use their time in Edmentum more wisely, knowing that it will help them if they take it serious. So that goal setting and feedback, we can't overlook that part for adults or for students.